It starts with John, chapter 10, verses 11 through 16. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, who is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away, and the wolf snatches them and scatters them. The hired hand runs away because a hired hand does not care for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. There is a fine line between faith and stupid. Now, I realize that stupid is not a nice word, and usually I would try to find a more appropriate way to approach this message, but I've noticed lately that a lot of people use the fine lines of life in a way that create excuses instead of actually dealing with the difficulties that are happening. We will listen to any voice that tells us what we want to hear. But as people of faith and life, we are to seek the voice of the good shepherd that guards the sheep. But let's be honest. Most of us seem to find it much easier to follow the example of the hired hands, and sometimes we even may be like the hired hands. We are willing to watch out for the sheep until any threat of change comes our way. So we've now been quarantined long enough that every possible argument has finally had a voice, and we've all had to watch each other pick which argument makes each person feel less uncomfortable and more empowered. Which argument gives us the ability to walk away from the responsibilities of the boredom and the loneliness of watching a bunch of stupid sheep? What makes us not look stupid, unloving, or like the bad person if we bail on the sheep? Because of our moments of weakness and anxiety and even boredom, I wonder what real wolves have been able to start to creep in and have begun to scatter us back away from each other. Because a few weeks ago, do you remember that? We were united. We were not arguing politics or getting frustrated at the choices of others. We were trying to find a way to stop a major pandemic from killing more people than it needed to kill. Yes, we closed the schools. But due to technology, most of us have not stopped education. We closed church buildings, but we have not stopped God. We closed our places of work. But there are people that have rediscovered a meal around a table at home. And there are places that for the first time in a long time could see stars without smog. But the wolves have started creeping in, both the real ones and the types that are created in our struggling places of fear and anxiety, and both can be just as dangerous, and both types cause us to scatter and create more brokenness. I mean, we know that there are things in life that are always broken, but how we respond says everything about who we are, and more importantly, about our faith and our call to love God and one another more than self. We are called as Christians to bring the flocks together, to follow the example of the Good Shepherd. And coming together is much more difficult and hard work, especially in a time when it means staying physically apart. It sometimes feels stupid and worthless. But our dependence on things and not our faith has long been an idol that humans have chosen to worship over God. We've ignored God's request for us to be more like the Good Shepherd and care more for the sheep than ourselves. So we must ask ourselves, what does it look like when we care more for the sheep? Well, one of those answers is I've heard that there are people willing to die. They've used the word sacrifice for our economy and our country. But some of those same people are still not willing to wear masks because they think it limits their freedom. So they think that this is the way to care for and protect the sheep. And maybe it is. Maybe that's what makes sense. That doesn't make sense to me. That actually seems to me to only protect a few of the sheep with human standards. Those human standards built on financial idols and personal freedom as more important than the communal welfare of the entire flock. And it's hard, and it seems to keep getting more confusing and complicated because it is. And there are reasons that we then just sometimes must pray and let the words lead us not into temptation come over us with the prayers, because it is tempting. It is tempting to leave the sheep. It is tempting to find excuses that work for us, for me. It is tempting to put self before what to others looks like a bunch of stupid sheep. It is tempting to walk away from the other stupid hired hands who are acting dumber, it feels like, than the sheep. And it's tempting to act like I'm better. I am so much better because I am doing what I'm supposed to do. And it is easy then to have others feel attacked by me and myself to feel attacked by others. And all of this means that we are creating wolves, and the wolves are attacking. And I start to wonder why. Why would anyone stand in the middle of all of this chaos and try to protect what does not seem to be worth protecting? I mean, sheep as a species are one of the most destructive groups of animals. Why would anyone try to protect them? Why would anyone be willing to die for all this stupidity? Faith is to know that there is good. Faith teaches us that good is God. Faith works to see the God and the good in others, to see the good and the God in the sheep. Did you know that while the sheep over the past few hundreds of years have gotten a reputation for being stupid, sheep are actually very smart animals? In an article written by Harriet Constable on the BBC website Earth, she writes, "Sheep are actually surprisingly intelligent, with impressive memory and recognition skills. They build friendships, stick up for one another in fights, and feel sad when their friends are sent to slaughter. While sheep are still imperfect, there is something powerful about reclaiming the positive aspects of their true nature. There is something that allows us to have faith in what before was just seen as worthless sheep to some, but the real aspects of love for these sheep and some of the things they do can be valued and good and godlike. Thus, we should work hard to do the same for humans. We should remind ourselves to continue to try to find faith in one another. And we should remember that we need to build friendships and stick up for one another and feel sad when others are ultimately hurting. And these are the types of things that I believe that the Good Shepherd valued. These are the things that the Good Shepherd was willing to die. These are the things that can bring us together in the midst of so much stupid. We must see the potential that the Good Shepherd sees, and then we have to work to listen for his voice and find that potential in ourselves and in others, and let it overpower our individual voices and needs and the voices that let the wolves creep in. And we need to let it overpower the things that make us scatter and look stupid. So this week I invite you to seek and continue to hear the voice of the Good Shepherd through your faithful practices. Take time to hear his words. These are those words. I am the Good Shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as God knows me, and I know God, and I lay down my life for the sheep. Hear those one more time. Find a word or something to reflect on. I am the Good Shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as God knows me, and I know God, and I lay down my life for the sheep. Let us remember, however, that the life that was laid down, the life of the Good Shepherd, did not end in death. God's goodness cannot die. It continues. It will continue if we let it and recognize it to find ways to let us live. And so we should not waste the gift of life given to us by the Good Shepherd. We should not let the wolves of fear and the dark tombs win. We should not let it cause us to run and scatter. Instead, we should empower ourselves to struggle and to love each other faithfully. And not just be a bunch of stupid sheep, but be sheep that hear the shepherd's voice. Follow the example for all. So go forth this week. Go forth and try, as I will try, to be a smart sheep. Amen.